Hello again, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me here on a very, 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 very special edition of Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com, brought to you by my good friends at Window Nation. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel, and that gentleman on the other side of the screen is legendary DFW Sports Fox anchor, Mr. Mike Ducey. Mr. Mike Ducey is joining us from his estate in Carrollton. Apparently, the moat has completed. No one is allowed in other than his grandchild. And the reason is Mr. Ducey is joining us this week as our normal co-host for this. Mr. Nick Harris is driving back from the Super Bowl. He was at the Super Bowl this week for Super Bowl Media Week festivities, and he is en route. And I thought, considering the magnitude of what do we got going on back there, Mike?
We got a dog here, but it'll take care of itself. We'll be fine.
Mike, thanks.
If I'm suddenly dragged to the ground, you'll know what happens.
Mike, thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
I do appreciate it.
Breaking news, Mac. We've moved from Carrollton to Little Elm. That's where we're coming.
Oh, you're in Little Elm
from this morning.
So what you're trying to do, Mike, I'm guessing, is getting further and further away from people.
The riffraff. It's nice. No, it's Carrollton was good to us for many years, and we're enjoying a new location now. Still kind of getting settled here, but thanks for asking, even though you didn't. Back to you.
Yeah, I know I didn't. Well, I didn't get the update that you had moved. I guess I didn't make that text or email. It's all right. I won't hold that against you, at least for the next 10 minutes. Mike, on a serious note, you are a new grandfather, which I would imagine is very exciting for you. I see that update on a social media account that you have not blocked me. So there's only a couple of those on your tree of social media accounts. On a serious note, Mike, congratulations to your family. How has that transition been for you as a granddad now? I know you're a great dad with two daughters, but now that you're a granddad, you've moved up the food chain. How is it being a granddad?
It's all it's cracked up to be so far, Mac. Yeah. And I try not to just overwhelm people with tons of social media photos of the little guy. His name is Harrison. But I'll throw one on there from time to time. And he's doing great. He's not quite 5 months old yet. Just a happy, healthy little guy. We get to see a lot of them. So we're grateful for that.
So as a grandparent, and I saw my mom go through this when we had our daughter back, this is a number of years ago, and we were sitting at the dinner table, and my mom, she had like our daughter had like vegetables on her plate, and my mom looks at her and says, "Oh, you don't have to eat those," and my eyes about fell out of my skull, because I was the house that I grew up in. You finished your plate. I don't care what was on it, Mike. You're finishing that plate, and I would sit there for months to not eat my green beans or whatever ungodly vegetable concoction my mom put on that. But for the grandchild, my mom was like, "Yeah, here, do whatever you want. I don't care. Here's cake. Here's brownies for dinner."
Right.
Where on that spectrum will you fall?
Well, so far Harrison's just on bottles, so he and I have a very similar diet in that regard. But oh no, I got a cat on the chair behind me too. This is totally out of control here. The dog is visiting, and then so the cats are freaking out. Anywho, I suppose I'll be lenient like most grandparents are. I'll try to balance. I'll try not to violate too many of his parents' rules, but we'll sneak an extra snack in there from time to time and stay up late and watch stuff, watch ball games late and all that good stuff. So I look forward to that.
Well, I mean, who are you kidding, Mike? You're going to stay up late and watch video highlights of yourself airing either free for all or whatever highlight packages, or when you did sideline for Fox Games of the Week. But we don't need to focus on that.
See this house, Harrison? Yeah. See this house? See all we have? That's why. Right there. That's the money.
I did
little
that,
buddy.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of establish some ground rules early.
So normally I've had you on this vodcast show, whatever you want to call it, a number of times. Typically we talk about the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to veer in a different direction because of the seismic
FC Dallas.
FC Dallas getting ready to fire up. Pitchers and catchers getting a report to spring training. Miro Heiskanen, the Dallas Stars defenseman, is on the injured list for the next 10 months or whenever that is. Luka Doncic gets traded on late Saturday night from the Dallas Mavericks to the Los Angeles Lakers. Luka is a Laker. I was in bed when I found out. Now, I wasn't asleep because we were waiting up for our daughter who was out with the boyfriend. It's all good. So far.
Keep telling yourself that.
Yeah. Where were you when you found out? And did you initially believe it when you saw it?
We had been out with some friends, and I'd been back home for a little while. My wife had gone to bed, and I was up about to go to bed myself, scrolling. I don't remember if I had ESPN on or what I had on the TV, but suddenly the news was breaking on social media. And no, I didn't believe it at first. It was one of those things where, I was kind of tired and stuff. Maybe I'm dreaming. Maybe I'm not sure what state of consciousness I'm in right now. So it was, and this, you've been doing this for a long, long time as well. I don't ever remember being that surprised by a single piece of information as I was that. It just came totally out of the blue. It reminded me, and I'd only been here 3 weeks at the time, and we got our information in a different way back then. But it reminded me when we found out that Jerry and Jimmy were splitting up. It was just one of those. Really? Why would they do that? Why is this happening? And I think this one's even more stunning because I think back in '94 there was an inkling that they weren't getting along, and a few things had been said, and shots had been fired, verbal shots, so to speak. This one, I guess we knew in general terms the Mavs weren't happy with some of Luka's habits, but to take it to this extent, man, it stunned me then, and I still don't really understand why it happened.
Well, and you just led me to the next question and I'm sure you've done this either on air or off air because I've talked about it a lot. I've written about it a lot. This is one of all players get traded, players leave, coaches get fired, general managers move on, owners sell teams. It's just part of the landscape of sports. As I have talked my way through this one, I still really can't make sense of it. If he was 30, I could. But he's 25. So as you've talked your way through it, can you make any more sense of it today, which is Friday the 7th, than you could initially when you first found out about it, or even as you heard the initial reports and details about it? Can you make any more sense of it today, Mike, than you could then?
I really haven't wrapped my mind around it any more than I was able to early. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist by nature, but I just have this nagging feeling that there's something there, something significant that we don't know about. I'm assuming we'll know about it at some point. Maybe we won't. I just don't know why Nico, virtually everything he'd done had turned to gold with this franchise for the most part, suddenly becomes this irrational manager who just decides to trade away the face of the franchise and not get enough in return. And I hear people say that a lot. And then you look at what they got in return. I can't think of anything they could have gotten in return that would have justified the move, really. Anything within reason. So I don't know if, and different, as you know, reports have come out now that it wasn't even Nico. It was from above Nico with the Adelson group that really wanted this to happen. I guess that would make sense to me because Nico Harrison is a guy who knows basketball, just wouldn't make this for basketball reasons, I wouldn't think. So maybe it strictly is a business decision by an ownership group that's new to this game and doesn't realize if you don't pay this guy, you're going to have to pay somebody else at some point. It's just kind of how it works if you want to have a competitive team. Or if there's something, and I even hate to throw this out there, in Luka's lifestyle that we don't know about that really compelled them to do this beyond just, that is lack of conditioning a euphemism of some kind? Again, I'm grasping at straws here. I don't know because I didn't agree with the deal being done. I still don't. I think they'll regret it. They might be okay in the short term because they got a really good player. They got a Hall of Famer in return, and they've got a NBA champion running the show now as with Kyrie Irving as well. So maybe short term, but they're just going to have to sit and watch Luka become the next great one name Laker icon and wearing that uniform for another 10, 12 years. And Nico is going to be haunted by that. So that's a long way of saying I still don't know why the hell it happened.
The only thing, so I've heard like you, and I have some, some people, I know some people who work for the franchise, and they were just absolutely blindsided by it. Nico Harrison held a Zoom call along with the new team president with employees on Monday, I think it was, basically to try to answer some questions, and there's try to reassure that this was done for the right reasons. Of the theories that I've heard, and they're just theories. The only, and I know Colin Cowherd, who's a national sports radio voice, he claims that he knows somebody who knows Nico Harrison, and Nico was told by ownership, trade him because we do not want to sign Luka Doncic to a $350 million supermax contract. There's no way to know it. There's no way to know it. Is it plausible? 100%. That one I believe. But if they were going to do that, Mike, then why did they give Klay Thompson all that money just a few months ago? They knew this was coming. I mean, this was on the horizon. This has been on the horizon for some time. They knew this was coming. You didn't have to give him that contract in the summer. Now that would have been a sign that you were going to move him. There's parts to every part of the conspiracy theory of these threads that we are doing that don't really add up. Do they think? Here's another one that I heard that I thought, okay, I buy that. Is there something about him medically that is such a red flag that they think this guy is going to suffer a major injury very soon? Now, they did that with Steve Nash. Remember, Mark Cuban didn't go to a bigger contract with Steve because his medical people had said, this guy's going to get hurt. And it didn't happen. He went on to win 2 MVPs with the Phoenix Suns, and it was an all-time pie-in-the-face decision by Mark that he owned. And then the other one was the Mavs just hate him. They just don't like him. That they were just sick of him. The guy's never healthy. This out-of-shape thing comes and goes. He's never played more than 72 games in a season, and that was his rookie year. Now we are in an era, Mike, where no NBA player plays 82.
Right.
But he is hurt a lot. He always looks like he's in labor pains when he's playing. But this guy averages basically a triple-double rolling out of bed. And to me, and I wrote it, they think he's going to age like James Harden. Well, okay, that's fine. James Harden from 25 to 29 still had MVP caliber seasons. At 30, I get it. Guys age just differently at 30. But of all those different ones that I've listed, which one do you is the one like, okay, because whenever Nico Harrison leaves, they'll include an NDA, I guarantee it. But whenever he leaves, and you mentioned the Adelson group, it's totally valid. They don't live here. And the other one too is they want to sink the team to move them to Las Vegas. Yeah. I don't think that one's going to happen. But of all those ones that I've ripped off, which is the one we'd say, okay, I can kind of buy.
I think it's a slight combination of not wanting to pay him because they worry about him not taking care of himself in some way, not necessarily at risk for a catastrophic injury, but just by virtue of the fact that he carries too much weight, it's always going to be something with the legs. And that's a somewhat valid concern given the sport that he plays. Just as kind of a sidebar here, I thought one of the interesting things, and we're recording this before we're going to probably hear from Nico again, but one of the interesting things we heard from Nico initially on this was going out of his way to talk about how Jason Kidd didn't know about this beforehand. Think of the type of player Jason Kidd was, the type of player that Jason Kidd wants, and think of the type of player Luka is. Now, I'm not saying Kidd was behind this, but it wouldn't stun me if there was some knowledge there and if he bought into a certain extent too. I said I don't believe conspiracy theories, and maybe that is one. I don't know.
But that's not a conspiracy theory. I think I give Nico Harrison credit in one area on this, Mike, is he took every bullet. Yeah. And he made sure the coach wasn't blamed. He made sure the ownership wasn't blamed. Even if parts of this are like, wait a minute, I don't know about this, but I would say there's another facet that you mentioned, which is Jason Kidd. If you look at the basketball move that this is, which is you're putting now a guy who affects all parts of the floor, especially defensively and rebounding. And he's as good as there is right now at that spot. When he plays, that's the part I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's still crazy to me, but I can kind of see that. It's a stretch that I could see where Jason Kidd would say, okay, that makes us that's going to make us a better team this season and next season.
No, it is. And again, it's counterintuitive to say this after trading away Luka, but it is the kind of the ultimate win now move, because absolutely. You assume that Davis won't stay healthy long enough to be a factor for many, many years to come, the way Luka likely will with the Lakers. But recency bias tells you that Luka's been out for a couple of months now too. So who's to say he's going to come back and be effective either? It's just amazing how it changes the whole complexion of this team from one that you worried about it defensively. Now you worry about it having enough punch offensively, able to score. But just back to Luka, it is, if I had to guess, a combination of them not wanting to pay him because of concerns about the way he prepares himself. And that combination led to this. Again, why 7 years in now, and Nico hasn't been here that long, but however many years Nico's been here, suddenly that dawned on him to do it right now. I guess that's related to the Supermax, if we're looking for some hook as to why the timing would be the way it is.
Last topic before we go to break. We obviously talked about this one, but in terms of, you mentioned the Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones split. I talked to former Star Telegram, Dallas Morning News, and longtime DFW sports talk show host Randy Galloway yesterday about this, and you can certainly speak to it. Can you think of anything that's happened here that has generated the type of outrage and anger like this trade just has?
The Jimmy Jerry split did, and that's when the blame of blaming Jerry for everything really ramped up. I'd only been here a couple of weeks at the time, but the intensity of this kind of surprises me, to be honest, because I think some of the same people who probably complained about Luka when he played here, and the way he whined all the time at the refs and the way he didn't get back on defense, suddenly now are just outraged that he's gone. I'm not saying they aren't really Luka fans, but it's like, he was our guy to complain about, damn it. We want him to be our guy to complain about and not their guy. And the fact that he ended up going to the Lakers, I mean, this is like trading Staubach in '74 to the Redskins. It's ridiculous. But I've never seen anything quite like it. That's for sure.
I think the fact that they traded him to LA, and even when during the press conference, Lakers general manager Rob Pelinka thanks Nico Harrison. Now, I know some of that's just, it's just being polite and doing what you have to do. But it was just like they gave him to the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, and I'm still it would be one thing if they'd sent him to the Bucks or the Pacers or Wizards or something like that. But to send him to that franchise, you gave him to the Yankees. And that's the reason why it stings. Okay, we've got a couple more things to talk about before we wrap this up, but I do want to take a second to hear from our good friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no interest payments for 60 months, 5 full years. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Thank you very much, Window Nation. Back here on StarTelegram.com for Cowboys Overtime. I'm Mac Engel. He is Mr. Mike Ducey. Mike, which one do you like? You got this one. Okay, that's price to sell. Or let me see if I can get the cord around the way here. We got this one. We got an old school Doncic jersey. So now that these are vintage, and needless to say, going to be flashed, price to sell. Which one would you like when I send it to your house in Little the one that you wouldn't give me the address to?
I'd probably take the throwback, the Kelly Green. I like that look. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so let's move on. The Mavericks beat the Boston Celtics last night in Boston. Couldn't do it with Luka. Now that he's gone, got that headache gone, even though Anthony Davis is on the bench. The Mavericks go into Boston and beat the defending world champion Boston Celtics. Mike, let's just play this out. Best case scenario. And the Mavericks win the NBA championship. Okay, it's a reach, but okay, let's just play this out. Does that redeem? Are they redeemable? Does that make, if they win one of the next 2 seasons, do they win the trade? Is the trade justified?
That's a great question, and I think that they do. I mean, that's what you're in this for, is to win the title. And if you win the second championship in the 45-year history of the franchise, a year or 2 after making this trade, I don't know how you could judge it any other way other than to say the Mavs won the trade. Now, I'll hedge a little bit and say that if Luka leads the Lakers to, 4 titles in 8 years or something after the Mavs win theirs, then we might have to reassess that a little bit. But if their stated goal was to win now, and they managed to essentially win now, then I think they won the trade.
I agree with you. I do think when a team wins a championship, whatever moves you made, like the Rangers, let's go back 2 years ago. The Rangers traded for Max Scherzer, and they signed Jacob deGrom. Well, neither one of those pitchers really did that much for that championship, but they contributed in some way. And in my philosophy, and I remember I heard the late John Madden say this, and it'd been something that I thought, and he kind of crystallized it when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won their first Super Bowl, and they had done it because they had those great Tony Dungy teams, but they never broke through under Coach Dungy. And then they did with John Gruden because they had made the trade with the Raiders to get John Gruden. And John's point was, whatever move you made and you won a championship, then it was right. And I think if the Mavericks can somehow, and they might, Anthony Davis is a really good player. Mm-hmm. If they win it, then yeah, I think the pain is this was your guy. He was ours from day one, and now he's not. And I think the idea that we were going to have our second Dirk, Dirk was our guy, and they went through that whole story. I mean, you were here for the whole thing, and that whole evolution and struggling, and he doesn't play defense, and all he wants to do is be Robin, and they can't beat the Heat, and then all of a sudden he does it, and it made the story that much sweeter. And I thought that had the potential to happen with Luka, and now that's not going to happen. I certainly don't wish him ill will. I don't wish the Mavs ill will, but I do think a lot of people right now are still mad and hurt. They want to see the team fail. I think they're redeemable. If they win a championship with Anthony Davis, then it does redeem the trade to me. But this one has the potential to really sting because the other guy's only 25 years old. All right, go ahead.
Fans do forget, as you know. They forgive and they forget. A lot of Cowboy fans, again, who said they'd never go to Texas Stadium again after Coach Landry was fired, were there enjoying the 3 championships in 4 years. But as I said earlier, the intensity of this reaction and how personally so many people seem to be taking it has surprised me. But if quickly you can win big as a result of this trade, then I think for the majority of people, not all, but for the majority of people, all would be forgiven.
I agree with you. I do agree with you. Fans are fickle and memories can be short. Even though this one has the potential to bother people justifiably for quite some time. All right. Let's move on to our last topic here on Cowboys Overtime, and that is the Super Bowl. It took something seismic, like what happened in the NBA with one of the top players in the world being traded to the LA Lakers, to make the Super Bowl a secondary story, which unbelievably is exactly what happened. It's either that or we all have Kansas City Chiefs fatigue syndrome. Kansas City Chiefs are in their third consecutive Super Bowl. They're going for a three-peat, which has never happened before. They were in their seventh straight AFC championship game. Mike, you grew up in Iowa. So having grown up in Iowa, you had your affiliation with an NFL team, could have gone to Chicago, Minnesota, or Kansas City. I lived in Kansas for 4 years, and I certainly was familiar with the fan base there and how much they loved the Chiefs. But that was under Marty Schottenheimer, the late Marty Schottenheimer, and they had just started to turn the corner, and they were pretty good. But the Chiefs were never they were never a threat. Well, they were briefly a threat under Marty Schottenheimer. They were pretty good. But now they've become the villain, which is what happens when you have a great team. Are you sick of, and do you think we are collectively just tired of the Chiefs?
Two different answers. I think people in general are growing tired of the Chiefs. I don't know that they're villains in the way that the Cowboys would be for a lot of people if they were winning big, or the Raiders back in the day or something like that. But I think just because of the monotony of the same team winning big over and over and over again. Personally, I love the story because I have a bit of a connection there too. My first shot at doing TV, I'd done radio for years and years, but I worked at a radio TV combo in Topeka, Kansas. And so I got a chance to do some TV, but I was the sideline radio reporter for the K-State radio network. And the play-by-play voice was Mitch Holtis, who now is the voice of the Chiefs, whom you hear all the time on NFL films and, just going crazy calling Chiefs games. So I was a little bit close to that franchise just briefly. And I just admire so much the way they do business. They are the anti-Cowboys, aren't they? And it's so ironic, the fact that, the Hunt family is still based here, but they're seemingly, other than, the Taylor Swift thing, all about football and just the way that they go to work. And, Mahomes with his Texas ties, I mean, it adds insult to injury from a Cowboy standpoint. So in short, I am not personally tired of the Chiefs, but I know a lot of people are. And you throw in the conspiracy theories about the officiating favoring the Chiefs, which just absolutely beats me into submission because I just think it's just a crock. But I think there are some people cheering against the Chiefs for that reason. But there's a lot of, because we live here, a lot of Eagles haters out there too. So a lot of people probably wish both teams could lose this one.
I'm of the mind that my attitude about dynasties and evil empires and Darth Vader and all that, I think they're great marketing for sports when they happen, and they have to happen organically. You can't make them. I mean, if you could make them, the New York Knicks would be killing it, and they stink, or they don't stink now, but they did for a long time, and they just have to sort of happen. The New England Patriots they happened, and you have to give them credit. They found a great quarterback, and the coach, everything lined up. And the University of Alabama football, Chicago Bulls basketball, LA Lakers, that's great to mention, Dallas Cowboys. They just sort of have to happen organically. And when they do, I think they're great marketing because at some point people just want to watch to see if they can be beaten. I get a little fatigued with it. I as happy as I was to see Kansas City get that first championship a few years ago. Now I'm like, okay, can somebody else bleep and win? I really want to see different towns get that fun, get that experience. That's why I'm still a Bengals guy back there. You can see
there you go.
That is a Bengals Super Bowl champion pennant. We don't need to talk about how I found it, but I'm kind of a homer for that. So last thing I'll ask you, the Super Bowl is Sunday. Who's your winner?
I do have Kansas City. I can't pick against maybe the greatest quarterback of all time in a game like this. He'll be considered that, I think, before he's done. So good game, I think. Not just saying that because it's on Fox, but 30-27 Kansas City to call here.
I agree with you. I've been picking against the Chiefs for a long time because they keep winning close games, and I'm of a mind you keep playing close games, you're just eventually going to lose one of them. I'm not going to bet against that defense. I think that defense is, if you can call it underrated, but I think it's been overlooked because that defensive line with Chris Jones is really good, and they can blitz off that. They're playing really well. So I agree with you. I think a 3-point edge is a pretty good win, but I'm so confident in it, I'm not betting on it. Mike, I took too much. This went on about 10 more minutes than I wanted, but congratulations to your family on the new addition and your new house, by the way. I look forward to not being invited. But thanks so much for your time. Enjoy the game on Sunday, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks so much. Thank you, Window Nation. We'll see you next week.
Take care.